back with part three of our series we've been discussing, financial resolutions for 2022. My name is Morris Jackson. This is Religion, Economics, and Politics, REP. And before we go any further and bring these two gentlemen back, I wanted to announce, and they weren't aware of this, but the topic we've been talking about has hit home for me this week. Today is Sunday, the 30th. And actually on Friday, just 2 days ago, my sister actually called me when I was on my way to work and told me that my only nephew had unexpectedly passed away. He was 19 years old. And it took us all by surprise. Like I said, young man, had his whole life ahead of him. And I just, thinking about when I was 19, I just joined the military and how much living I've done since the age of 19. And, some things also caught, like I said, my sister off guard. And we're talking about this estate planning and insurance and whatnot. Now we're fine because, we have the financial wherewithal to be able to contribute and make sure that things are taken care of. But there's a lot of people out here who don't have that financial, backing or the funds readily available to be able to do something like this. And it's a substantial amount of money, especially when you're talking about being able to take care of your loved one and making sure that they're put away with dignity. So we're currently going through that planning process right now. Like I said, my nephew, James Hughes, I just want to dedicate this podcast to him. And this is difficult. I contemplated whether or not I was even going to do this podcast today, but this is to my only nephew. And this is a tragic loss for us. And but we're gonna move forward. We're gonna push forward because I felt like this is a part of the calling that God has put in my heart and for me to go and make sure that I get this information out. Because if it's happening to my family, it's happening to millions of other folks right now. So we want to make sure that we get this information out here to you and make sure that your family's prepared. So with that being said, I do want to reintroduce these brothers to you or have them reintroduce themselves to you. And we'll lead off Brother Akili. If you don't mind, introduce yourself again to our audience, and then Stan, you can pick up where Brother Akili left off.
Yes, sir. Well, actually, first of all, brother, my condolences to you and your family, man. To use somebody, that at that age, that has to hurt, and like you said, I have also had a long life since 19. So and when I visualize what you said, I personally lost a nephew at 18 who had an enlarged heart. Their family was on vacation playing basketball and he just collapsed on the court with his brother and his father, but they were in a position where they were able to, actually handle that. So that is always something that we never actually want to hear about. I am Akili Shabazz with Hidden Tools of Economic War. I have been in the industry. Well, I got involved through advocacy, through at-risk youth, and trying to educate the youth because I didn't like how they were being sent to the expulsion schools and to the actual prison system. So I first actually got involved through educating and advocating for our children at the high school level. Specifically, actually Black males was who I was targeting. And I worked in conjunction with the school district for a few years. And then I did a lot of actually nonprofit work, actually dealing with the actual finances of these organizations. So I became actually passionate really about the work and educating the actual community, because just on this one actually topic, we may be prepared for the unexpected, but how many other people are even contemplating that? Yes. Or even realize that there's a way for them to, do that. So the system is geared against us in so many ways. And the one thing I became actually passionate about is just trying to educate them and let our young people know that you're not delusional. A lot of things are aimed at you, and
Yes.
we're not going to go into the why actually right now, but that is the actual facts. And we wanted to educate people so they have the options to understand how they can navigate in this, through this, and around this, and prepare for it actually before any of that happens, which means you have to have those hard conversations because they're uncomfortable. But it's better to have the uncomfortable conversation beforehand than to have that surprising conversation, because at least when that surprising conversation comes, you're just dealing with the actual loss. The other stuff is not a stressor, it's just the loss, and giving the family and supporting the family so everybody has a chance to heal and actually grieve properly.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brother Keelan.
Yes, sir, brother.
Brother Stan?
Yes, sir. I too like to send my condolences to you, brother, you and your family.
Thank you.
And your sister. And I'm sure that's a great loss, a great future for the young man. And I mean, 19, he hasn't got started yet.
Right.
That's right.
I'm just thinking about the gifts and talents and the answers to prayers and all of that. So, but we always rely on that the Most High God, he's the best knower. And so I'm sure he's good to protect him and well received. So you can,
yes. Thank you for that, brother. Thank you.
My name is Stanley Ferguson. I got introduced to the financial industry about 6 years ago. And once I got introduced to it, once I got inside and started doing the work, I realized that a lot of answers a lot of the unanswered questions about finances, I had the ability to answer them because I was inside the industry. I saw a lot of stuff going on, a lot of movement going around, and a lot of the tools that we use, those tools are not even being introduced or brought to our community. So that really gave me that fire, that inspiration. And of course, Brother Keeley reached out to me several years ago in the partnership, and been a great partnership to build Hidden Tools of Economic War. So it's a passion of mine because it's answered a lot of questions. And the main question is, you don't have to be wealthy to build a financial base for your family. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be wealthy to do that. And that's when you're outside looking in, you think that you need a ton of wealth to even be introduced to be able to play in this game, but you don't. You just need to get in and get started. You don't have to be ready. Just get started, and everything, the universe will start moving in the direction that you need for the universe to move into, so you can prepare something for you and your family for the future. So,
absolutely. Thank you. And one of the things, like I said, we've been talking about insurance, we've been talking about estate planning, just kind of making sure you have your affairs in order and being prepared for the unexpected. And like I said, the passing of my nephew was definitely something, unexpected. As a matter of fact, just had a birthday on the 10th of January. So, so not even a full month has passed. So, something that I wanted to go back and explore because we personally encountered it. So is reviewing your portfolio, making sure you have the appropriate coverages, because my sister actually had thought she had the appropriate coverages. So I think that's something we should touch on, looking at your portfolio, making sure you have the coverages that you expect to have, so that when the unexpected happens, you're able to take advantage of those those coverages that you have in place. And that's also a good time, I would think, that should you discover that, hey, I don't have the right coverage in place, or maybe I'm underinsured, or maybe I'm not insured at all like I thought I was, or it didn't cover certain things, that would be the time then to address it. So, I don't know if it's something that we could do at any given time? We make it on our own schedule, or is it something that is based on an open enrollment period? But it's something I do want to discuss, because I'm sure there's going to be someone out here who is probably going through the same thing, maybe have just went through the same thing, or maybe they have children. And like I said, with my sister, she has two other children, two daughters, my two nieces. So we're definitely going to make sure that affairs are in order. God forbid if something else were to happen, we'd be prepared. So just kind of talk about that. Whoever wants to take that, about reviewing our portfolio and just making sure we have the proper coverages.
I'll go in and actually start out. I think the first thing that can be misleading sometimes is coverage at work. To say that you may have like a burial, you may have life insurance with work. Normally, that is only during the time of your employment. Normally, it's only $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, so it's not a whole lot of money, but it is some money, especially if the company is actually paying for it. So the first thing that I would say is, if you have a policy through work, ask those questions to see, is it an accidental life policy? So does it only pay off in the case of an accident? Because based upon your actual job, they may want to cover you in case of accidents. So see what type of coverage it is. Is it going to carry with you when you leave? Is it something that you can make permanent when you leave and take with you? The other thing would be, we have actually package in which we offer, which is like a burial package. And what I mean by that is, it is normally actually life insurance can take anywhere from 5 to 15 days to actually pay off. And depending on what you're trying to do with your service and your expenses and your plan, that is normally may have you waiting. Okay, but with our package, it pays off within 2 days. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And then it also gives you the software and the means to outline a will, a power of attorney, medical directive, so you can create the documents within this, as well as have cloud support, so you can allocate or just list everything. I think we may all be of the age when we may have had parents or our moms or our grandmothers who had the Bible as the place where they kept all the documents.
Yes.
Yes. I don't think our current generation is functioning like that. We all have the cloud, we all have software, we have hard drive, we have all these other means. So this is a cloud service, so you can keep it, you can update it. You have access to it where you can update it anytime you want to. You can change it anytime you want to. So this is something that you would have. That is normally a smaller package. And let me start with this. That is it's a package that is coupled with whole life insurance. So what I mean by whole life is, you don't age out of this. So if you get this coverage at 20, this will last you until you pass or until you stop paying for the coverage.
Okay. So I want to stop there just a second, just make sure we kind of process that first part of the information you said there, and I think that's very important. So you said average insurance or policies at the time of death take anywhere between 5 to 15 days to pay off. But the burial package that you offer is within 2 days.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and that's very important, because I know the upfront cost. You're generally going to have to start shelling out some money, usually within a week of the person passing. So
if not sooner, yes, sir.
If not sooner, correct. So the quicker we can get those funds dispersed, the bigger, or like I said, a more substantial benefit that is, I think, to the policyholders. So I just want to make sure we clarified that. So within 2 days with your package versus 5 to 15 with other packages.
And with this in this back office, if you will, you have the capability to look at different services in your area. So let's just say you had this service and you're in Houston and your sister is in actually California. You can go into your actually back office, put in her address and tell her you have these funeral homes around you, and you can kind of customize. This is what you want. You want a cremation, you want a viewing, you want whatever you want, you can kind of put it in and it'll do like price finding for you and help you shop those services in your area.
Okay.
So it makes it easier to the point where you're not trying to remember, you're not trying to go in the phone book, or you're not trying to say, where did so-and-so have their service at? You can literally look for what's most convenient for you and shop for you and see what you want and pick up your phone and actually deal with that. Or you can have the company that sponsors this advocate on your behalf. So you don't necessarily have to do that personally.
That's awesome. And the other question I wanted to ask is, as far as coverage, how much should we have? Because I think there's some costs that people don't necessarily take into account. So you have the cost that goes to the funeral home. So where they're going to have to prepare the body, and there's a process that goes there. So some are a little more, some are a little less, just depending on who you're using. I know we have several here in the area. So let's just say average cost, for the funeral homes that we use, it's roughly going to be around $5,000 to $7,000 for that process, and then that may include, the hearse, may include limo if you're going to do that, may include the use of the funeral home and them actually conducting the services if you're going to do it through the funeral home. But then there's the cost if you don't already have a burial plot. That's going to be very expensive.
Right.
I can tell you when we buried my mother last year in June, that's just the plot alone was 50. I think she just quoted to us. She said it was $5,400, but that didn't include everything else that goes along with that. So I paid about $9,000, and I had to come off cash to do that. And you got to do that. That's got to be paid for before they'll even really do anything with you or even lock that date in. So you got to pay cash. So if you don't have that kind of cash, I think this package that you're talking about here becomes even more important, getting paid out within 2 days. But I would also advise, and you all can touch on that, but I would also advise that you think about maybe, purchasing some burial plots beforehand, because it is going to be cheaper, and it does allow you to control your costs. You can even look at a family plot, or however you want to do it. But I would just think that's probably something we touch on. So how much coverage should we have, and then how much should we do in advance to control our costs?
I would say that you would want to do you would want to expect it to be about 10 to 15,000, depending on exactly what you wanted to do. So the coverage may, vary. With your price finder, you can help. That's one of the things you can do in your price finder to kind of put it out, to kind of outline what type of services you would want, and it would give you an ideal, and it gives you an itemized actually list. Company A offers this for this amount, company B offers this for this amount, company C. So you can see what everything would actually cost. If you have the funds up front, yes, it would be advisable to actually pre-purchase everything so that you can have it allocated, and that you can bury your wife next to yourself, or you can bury your mother next to your father, whatever the case is, or just have like a family area actually allocated. But of course that's based upon the individual resources, but the one thing that the software does is it helps you to allocate that and help you to plan that, so you can just see, and you can actually print out quotes of the three closest places to you.
And then, also something else I forgot to mention, and, when we often see this a lot of times, families end up having to try to raise money, headstone. That's going to probably run you, anywhere from $2,000 to maybe, I mean, I've seen some as elaborate as, $15,000. I mean, just depending on what you want to do. But, on average, for our family, I think we've done around $4,000 to $5,000 for, and we're not talking about an elaborate headstone. We're talking about just, a burial marker, because a lot of the cemeteries now they're going flat or flush. So they're not necessarily doing the old school gravestones like we're used to seeing, but that's around 5,000. So when you start putting on inscriptions, and if you want to put a picture, however you want to commemorate them, but I would say probably plan on anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 for that.
It's uncomfortable, but it's a conversation that has to be had so that what you want for your children, or children know actually what their parents want. But
Yes.
You're not going to have an ideal of that unless you have that conversation. It could be kind of morbid, but
Yes.
nonetheless, you have to start preparing for it, because it's going to come, and it's best to have a plan set up for it than be in a situation where you have to finance it. Because the one thing that the funeral home knows is that you need their service.
Yes.
You may go 5 miles away, whatever the case is, but you're going to need somebody's service. This is not something that you can just avoid doing,
And
But
especially
yeah,
during a time when you're very emotional.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll jump in here. You mentioned some things that I'll take. You asked a couple of questions in there, and I'll take this aspect of it. I think Brother Keely did an excellent job explaining the funeral portion of it. When should you go and talk to, or if you do have a policy in place, when should you go and just check in and see, hey, I want an annual review, or can you kind of tell me what I have? Do I have enough? Am I paying enough? All these good things, which is a great question that you should always do. And I recommend to folks, you should do it once a year, at least once a year. To get in there and make that phone call and set that appointment and go meet face to face, if they allow you in the office. And some of the specific questions you want to ask is, hey, because some people have policies, they don't remember what policy they had. You might have a term. They've forgotten the amount. You might have a universal life policy. You might have a permanent. I mean, so just to review what I have, and once you do review what you have, hey, beneficiaries, can you tell me who my beneficiaries are? Because some people, you might have a beneficiary who has passed away within that year, so you need to make that change, right?
Right.
And beneficiaries, if you got children and you got them laid out, you got 2 or 3 children, do you want 30, 30, 33, 33, 33? You want it 50, 50? You need to review that and then make changes if you want to, because, I don't know, sometimes parents fall with their children and stuff happens, right? And I'm talking from first-hand experience. They come in and they do make those changes. So you want to, if you do have a whole life policy, a permanent policy, and you are started off as a younger person paying a certain amount, you want to make sure you are paying that amount that keeps your policy active, because some people let's say you start off at $75 a month, okay, and you age, and as time changes, inflation goes up. Now, to keep your policy going until 85, 90, 101, you're paying, you got to increase what you're paying from 75 to 101 to 102. So this is something that we can do through illustrations. Like, okay, so how much do I have to pay to keep my policy at this level at the age of 65? We know $50 won't do it. We know 75 won't do it. And then you have run that illustration, that projection, they call it. And they say, okay, well, you might have to, start paying 125. That way, your policy doesn't expire.
Right.
So because you're not paying enough. And I've run into, I'm giving a quick example. There was a fireman who he had retired from the fire department. He had a policy. He paid the same amount for 30 plus years. He didn't know his policy had expired because he had paid the same amount for 30 plus years. So he come before me and he was like distraught. He's like, man, I thought I had this policy in place just in case. Well, the insurance company never reached out to him. Hence, you establish that once a year review right? Don't leave them in the insurance company because they won't reach out to you. You know, if you have a person who's there in place, who's, you know, on the job, knows, okay, I got this customer to check in with once a year, they'll reach out to you and remind you. But it's your job to put it on your calendar to reach out, because you might think you have something in place and go there and find out you don't have anything in place because it expired on you. So that's something you want to check. You want to, again, just review, check the beneficiaries, check, make sure you know the amount that you have, and you can adjust the amount if you have one of those policies where you can adjust the amount. Now, the permanent policy, I mean, the term policies, the amount might be locked in place, but that's when we sit down and talk initially with the financial professional and kind of put a specific plan in place for you and the family, and some of the elements that you want your policy to be able to do when you need to make those changes. So have that review. Sit down with a financial professional to go over your policy, to make sure you clearly understand what's going on. And then you can plan, like, okay, I know I'm gonna have this family dynamic or family change here in the next couple of months. So I need to go ahead and make this change to my policy right now. So that'll be covered. If you got another family member coming in, you want to, make sure you want to have that policy updated, get a second policy, or, what would it cost to, do certain things about it. But it would be great to have that conversation. Don't just get up life insurance policy and just walk away from it. It's your responsibility to go and review, to make sure you have enough money to take care of that burial, if you need to, or to pull money out if you have that type of policy. But it don't matter what type of policy you have. Your responsibility to go in and do that review when you need it.
And Brother Stan and Brother Keeler, both of you, that was great information. And you all said something that made me think. So we said company policy, and I've often heard just kind of in passing that we probably shouldn't just depend on the company policy. It would probably behoove us to have our own policy, outside or separate from our employer. Like I said, because there could be the issue like Brother Keeley raised. Does it travel with you when you leave that employer? What happens all of a sudden if you're laid off, and then maybe a month later or 2 months later you have that unexpected happen? Because we all know that these things don't wait for the perfect or a good time to happen, which I guess a death in the family is never a good time. Right. But so should we have a policy on our own that is basically we own it? It goes wherever we go, until we decide we want to end that policy. Is that something that you all would recommend?
Absolutely. You want something that, because when you're dealing with work, they're more than likely doing a group package for the job. So you're getting a good rate because it's part of the group, and of course, depending on what's going on, if you have layoffs at that job and your numbers actually go down, that could affect your actual package. When you have an individual policy, that's something that you qualified as an individual, and hopefully you're building a relationship directly with an agent that, as Stan said, that you built that relationship, and you can be like, hey, right now my wife's pregnant, so this is the actual due date. So once the baby's born, how do I add the baby on? And you can set a date right then, so that individual can actually follow up with you. The best thing is to have that personal relationship, so you have somebody who's cared about you as an individual, because they want to see, because if you're taken care of, your family's taken care of, that benefits the actual whole. Okay, it's not about me just giving you a policy so I can go on vacation next week and I got some money coming in. If that's not the mentality in which you want, but you certainly want to have a policy in which you are in charge of, what company is with, you can reach out to the company, you're getting direct communication on your policy. You can see, you're getting reports on your policy. If you have the type of policy that's actually growing, you have online access, so you can go in there and change or look at things. There's nowadays there's a lot that individual insurance companies offer you so you can be engaged with what is going on. Stan said something key about just get started. So once you get started, you want to be able to have that engagement so you can see what's going on. And then you have, I'm getting separated, I got married, like I said, beneficiaries passed, you're having fallen out of something, changing of your will. You have all these things that may change. And you want to make sure that not only you keep your actually beneficiaries updated in your policy, but you update your beneficiaries personally so they know, if something happens to me, you are my beneficiary. You have billions of dollars each year that goes unclaimed because the beneficiary may not know that they were actually beneficiaries, or they didn't know that mom and dad even had a policy. So all of these things come in place, but a work policy is kind of like you go in there, you sign 10, 15 documents. You're not really worried about it. You're not thinking about it. That's just part of your package so you can start work. The one thing that we did not answer earlier, this is not an open enrollment actually type of situation. I can call you whenever I'm moved by it and say, hey, I was thinking about this. What can I do to get ABC policy? I'm looking at spending this much. I'm looking at covering these people. How do I do that? And then you can start working on what is actually needed. The one thing that we said before is always based upon age, gender, and health. So those are going to be the dynamics. So if you started a policy in 2015, and then your twin brother or sister waited until 2019, you guys got the same identical health, well, who's going to be paying more, just for the simple fact that they waited. All the coverage is the same. So we want to make sure we get started with that. But of course, with anything that you're doing in this industry, you want to make sure that it's personalized and customized to you and your situation.
So from what I hear the both of you saying is, although we can't control life and some of the circumstances that may come at us, what we can control is how we prepare to meet the demands of those circumstances. So we can plan our coverages. We can plan how those coverages are paid out, who receives them, what type of coverages we actually sign up for. And we could basically kind of write our own script out as to how things should go. Should I pass, you pass, or a family member passes away, and we can cover a lot of these expenses because we know there's going to be expenses that will be involved in these processes. So that I think has been, the downfall of a lot of us. Like I said, even myself when it came to my own mother, there were some things I had to pay out of pocket. We didn't go back and do that review. We just kind of assumed that mom had the coverage, and we figured it was going to be good. And here's the other deal: I never had to bury anyone. When my mother passed away, that was the first time that I had to do that. In my family, it had always been, older family members, and I was a lot younger then, and it was my older cousins or uncles that took care of those things. Well, a lot of them have now passed on. So now that mantle has passed down to my sister and I and our generation. So, if it wasn't for some of our cousins who were just a little bit older than we were, but their parents had already passed on, they helped us out with a lot of those things. And trust me, when you're going through that situation, especially when someone is that close to you, like your mother or your son or your or daughter, God forbid, you're going to be very emotional. It's very hard to concentrate on some of the details because you're still grieving. I mean, you're still going through, it's still not even real for you. So as much planning as you can do on the front end of it, you're going to benefit from it. And you're going to spend a lot less money as well. Because I'm telling you, when I went in, I couldn't even remember how much I even paid for my mother's burial plot and the costs associated with it. And like I said, once the lady quoted back to me, I didn't even realize I paid it. It still was a surprise to me. But if we could go and do the planning, sit down like we were talking about in our last podcast, treat our families as a business when it comes to taking care of our business. Have those board meetings, whether you do it biannually or whether you do it annually. Let's sit down and have those conversations, those uncomfortable conversations, so that we can be as comfortable as possible later. Because trust me, when the stuff hits the fan, that's not the time you really want to have that conversation. And if you have to go in and start talking business with people, you're going to end up paying more than what you would have paid had you done that. Had you just done the planning beforehand. And it's just not something you really want to, try to do when you're going through such an emotional and traumatic time as when someone passes. So if I hear you right, those things we can't control, but we can control how we meet those demands when they show up on our doorstep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I would add, and once again, Stan alluded to this. If you're young and your just goal is to actually get started, you can get started actually with a term policy. And as you graduate from college and in 10, 15 years, my financial situation is going to be different, then you can actually convert that. So you can start with a term policy right now to just get coverage right now and then convert that or upgrade that into a permanent policy. That way, you're not looking at the fees of a permanent policy when you have minimal income.
So, and I got just two questions on this, and I'll make this a 2-part question so we can kind of wrap this particular topic up, unless you all have something that you want to elaborate on. So I have that young person, they're 20, 21, 27, whatever the age may be, they're young. And they're saying, well, you know what, I'm good. I just don't see the need for it right now. But let's say you're the parent and you want to insure that person. Now, I know they're an adult, but you want to make sure that they're covered if an event, because you're the one that's going to have to make the arrangements and to take care of all of those things after their passing. How do I go about doing that? And also, is there a package out there where basically I can just make one phone call based on the arrangements that I've already made? I've already identified the funeral home and who I want to conduct the services. I've already identified the casket and so forth. I've already made all of these arrangements of where I wanted to be buried. And is there a package that I can just pick up the phone, make that phone call, and basically my plan is activated, and I can kind of deal with more of the grieving process and dealing with some of the other things involving family while they handle the logistics on that side?
It's an excellent question. That is exactly what our package does. So it has a 24-hour actually service where you can call, and the people who are manning the phones are people from that industry. So you're not calling somebody who's just getting an actual job. You're calling somebody who's from the funeral industry. So yeah, you can absolutely call them and say, hey, my mother died, can you go in and implement this? And once again, you have your profile already in place, so they can just implement that actually for you, giving you the chance to grieve and deal with family. Because you're absolutely right. You don't want to be the one that dealing with the funeral home, because they're going to see the emotion and they can easily feed on that. So that is exactly what our packages offer. If you go into the profile section and set up your profile. If you have a package and you procrastinate, you're like, okay, I'm paying for it, I got it, but you never implement anything, you never create any documents or any outline in there, then it's basically useless from that actual perspective.
Okay. And then, what about insuring that young adult? Is there a process for that? Is this, I mean, so I know that they're an adult. Let's just say they don't necessarily want to pay for the package. They don't really feel like they need it. But, us being the parent or that uncle, and we said, hey, you know what? I know better, in this case. And I think it's better to be prudent. I'm going to insure this young man or this young woman, because I know that life is fragile and not everyone is as invincible as we think we are at that age. What's the process of, would it just be something that we could actually do and then maybe have them sign off and say, hey, I'm aware, I agree to this, and then we pay the premium if that's what we choose to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
They would have to be aware of it because they would have to actually sign off. I just can't blindly insure my child unless my child is underage. If I have an adult child, they have to be aware that they have this policy and what's going on with it. They would be the insured, but I would be the owner of the policy. And then I can set up the billing to actually come to me.
Got it. So for those mothers and fathers out there right now, if you have young adults, and I have young adults, and I can tell you, I know how difficult it is convincing young adults sometimes that, they should get coverage. And, they're not going to pay for it. Or most of the time, let's say they're not going to want to pay for that because right now their priorities are different.
Right.
So we can actually go and get a policy to cover them, get them to sign off, acknowledge it, sign off on it, they agree with it, and then we pay that premium. So I highly encourage you to do that. Again, like I said, just speaking out of personal tragedy that just happened with my nephew just 2 days ago. Totally unexpected, caught us all off guard. And we were making plans and sitting down and saying, okay, hey, look, we're going to start getting our financial house in order. We're going to start, talking about the coverages we need to put in place. Never expecting that, my sister's 19-year-old son, my nephew, would pass away. God forbid that would happen to your family, but let me tell you, it is better to be prepared when a situation like this shows up at your doorsteps, rather than, trying to scramble and figure out how you're going to get this done, because you're going to already be dealing with the trauma of losing that loved one, should it ever happen. So this is something that it's probably going to be pretty inexpensive, I would imagine, given their age, and as long as there's no health issues that would give the insurance companies a cause to maybe charge a higher premium. But usually, like I said, young folks, if they're 20, 25, 26 years old, relatively good health, you could probably get coverage for them at a reasonable price. So I would encourage you to start thinking about this, putting a plan in place to do this. And we'll make sure before we end this podcast that these brothers put their information out. You can give them a call. So thank you both for answering that question. And before we move on, did you guys have anything else to add before we move to the next topic?
Well, brother, if I can jump in here, if we want to stay on this topic, because this is very important, I'm fine with it. Actually, I don't know. I'm feeling that we need, because we got some young people out there, or some parents who have young people.
Yes,
they need to hear this. The other thing I want to add is, because I know you want to dedicate the show to your nephew, so I'm fine with it. Yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I want to just say is, it only takes about 30 minutes to do it. It only takes about 30 minutes to get it done. You just answer a few questions, and I'm talking specific to our package. You answer a few questions, and being a young person, like Brother Keeley said, you're the policy owner. You got your adult child who has agreed. Of course, if they're young, they're probably already in good shape. So you're talking 10, 15, well, not 10, but $20, $30 for 10, 15, $20 worth of coverage, 30 minutes, it's done. And we got the concierge service where that one phone call get you a check in 24 hours so you can take care of that. And then you have time to grieve because the professionals who are sitting there in the industry, that's their job, is to take care of those items that you don't have time to take care of. You want to grieve. And that's what they're there for. And to get all that set up, it takes about 30, maybe 45 minutes just to go through the application process. And that is it. I mean, it's just as simple. And you get, because I got one for me and my wife, but you get a nice little packet in the mail. It lists everything that you need. You have contact information, you have account numbers, and you have everything right there. You can keep it right there in the folder. And God forbid, if you ever need to use it, you just pull it out and make a phone call.
So, Brother Stan, I'm feeling this so strongly right now. Yes, let's stay on this. But I just feel like God just placed in my heart that the first person to contact you all and to ensure, a young person's son, daughter, whomever it is, I will pay personally out of my pocket. I will pay your first year premium in full. Mm. I will pay your first year premium in full. And I'm going to say it again so we make sure, and this won't be edited out. I'm going to say it again. The first person to contact you all and ensure their young adult, I will pay your first year's premium in full. I don't want you to experience the loss of a child, let alone I don't want you to experience trying to figure out how you're going to cover their burial expenses. So I just feel like God has placed that on my heart to do this. And we'll make sure, like I said, we put matter of fact, let's just go ahead and put your information out now. And like I said, I'll make sure it goes up on the screen when we upload this. And the first person to contact you all and ensure their young adult, I will pay the first year's premium in full out of my own pocket. Okay. So whoever wants to give that information.
I'll give our phone numbers, and then I'll also give the website. Our phone numbers, that's your brother Stan's phone number, is 478-707-7603. Once again, 478-707-7603. And my phone number is area code 510-602-2041. 510-602-2041. Our website is HTOEW.com, stands for Hidden Tools of Economic War.com, or you can contact us at info@HTOEW.com.
Thank you, brother. And I think this next one, I know you'd mentioned maybe us taking this live. I think maybe our next one, like I said, if you're all up for it, we'll take this one live, and we'll take some questions as they come up. But I just really felt this, in my spirit to do this. I just don't want anyone to experience what we've had to experience this weekend. But if you do, I think at a minimum, we should at least be able to be prepared or have ourselves in a position to where that's one thing that we don't have to be concerned with. This is definitely something that we can control. It's time to shift the paradigm.
Yes, sir.
These tools are in place. They're readily available for us. We just have to take advantage of it. And, all the knowledge in the world can be available to us. But if we don't grab a hold to it and apply it to our lives,
right?
It's just like a vapor. The Bible talks about, wisdom cries out in the streets. So basically when I read that scripture, it talks about, wisdom crying out in the streets. I mean, it's readily available to anyone who will listen.
Yes, sir.
So it's not locked away in a vault. It's not hidden away, just for the rich or just for the privileged, but it's readily available for anyone who will latch on to it. And I promise you, if we make the decision that, hey, look, we're going to start doing the right things with our money. This is one of the reasons why I started this podcast out with you, brothers, and started this out dealing with finances. You said, well, we're talking about insurance, but if you understood the power behind insurance and the wealth building capabilities, or the wealth building mechanisms of insurance, you would understand this has everything to do with wealth building. And if you had to come out of pocket, and we can address this on the next show. So now you've come out of pocket. Let's just say you didn't have that insurance before. And so now what do? I've taken this money out of pocket, but now we got to build the money back up. So what are some tools we can put in place to start to build that money back up, and not only build it back up, but to protect that wealth? Because it's not good enough just to get it, to build it up, but now how do you keep it? How do you keep it? So those will be some of the things that we'll talk about next week. So we found ourselves in this situation, loved ones passed away, we've come out of pocket, we've taken care of the things we need to take care of. Man, I wish we had that insurance. I wish we had that coverage then, but we didn't. But you know what? For the children that are still here, I have another daughter, I have another son. Hey, this has really sparked me to do the right thing. Take care of my finances because, hey, I don't want to go through this again. Okay, hey, let's get the insurance. Let's get the coverage for those children, or for a niece, or for a nephew, or whatever that family, a brother, a sister, whomever. Let's do that. Now let's talk about, how do I put the money back that I've had to spend? I've just kicked out $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 of my savings. And God knows you need those savings. You need that money for an emergency fund or for a rainy day or whatever the case may be, because life is going to happen. Whether it's a car repair, whether it's new tires, whatever it is, something's going to come up. I have gotten into the habit of just insuring everything, especially if you own a home. You need to insure your appliances, because trust me, when one goes out, they all will go out at the same time. It's just Murphy's Law. They will all go out at the same time. The dishwasher goes out, the refrigerator is going to go out. The refrigerator goes out, the washer dryer is going to go out. It just happens that way for whatever reason. So if I'm going to insure my appliances, if I'm going to insure my home, how much more so should I insure myself? How much more so should I insure my children? Now, we're going to have insurance on that car. I guarantee we're going to have insurance on that car. But we don't always have insurance on ourselves. We don't always have insurance on our children. And I would even go so far as to say this: wherever your treasures are, that's where your heart is. Whatever you value the most, it's going to show up. If you show me your bank account and you let me look at a ledger, whatever I see you spending money on, that's what you value the most. I understand what your mouth is saying. Now I'm preaching, okay? I understand what your mouth is saying, but I see where your money's going. And if we truly love our loved ones like we say we do, then our money should account for that. It should all line up. It should all line up. And we're not talking about a lot of money here when it talks about insuring. When we talk about insuring our loved ones, it's about taking accountability, especially as parents, just taking accountability. And some of it, hey, we just didn't know. Maybe we thought we had the coverage. That's why we're having this show. Let's sit down. Let's have those board meetings. Let's have those conversations. and I won't be there. You just be just the privacy of you and that, that consultant talking about it. We don't have to know. I don't want to know your business. What I do want is for you to be able to take care of your family.
Yes, sir.
Especially during a time, when you're dealing with such a traumatic experience, such as this. Like I said, we've been blessed enough to where I could say, "Hey, sis, don't worry about it. We got it. What do you need? We'll take care of it." But how many families out there? Those are the families that I'm concerned with. How many families out there cannot say that? That really touches my heart. And that is not the time to be discussing that when your baby is gone.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
That's not the conversation we want to have. And you know what? And as blessed as I am, I can't help everyone. If I could, I would. But I just don't have enough of the resources to go around like that. I know Jesus fed the multitudes, but that's Jesus. I'm limited in what I can do. But what we want to do by having this show is making sure that you have the knowledge to be able to put yourself in a position where, hey, you don't have to have $10, $15, $20,000, but maybe if you just had $20, $30 a month,
Right.
That's a force multiplier.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's a force multiplier. Everybody's got $20 to $30.
No, it starts with a conversation, brother.
Yes.
It has to start actually with the conversation because the mentality has to be changed, and hopefully, when we learn, we can learn off experience, but sometimes if we pay attention, we can learn off the experience of others. We don't have to experience everything in order to understand it, but we do have to be open enough to have a conversation and understand that these things are happening. It may not be your turn or your family's turn. So it's best to shift your mentality to try to place those things in place. So, I mean,
Yes.
honestly, when you get the insurance and coverage in place, it's like you lost weight because you feel the burden lifted because you're going to worry about your children, period. That don't ever stop. When they're
Yes.
grown, they live in this other state, a disaster happened, first thing you think about. So that's not going to actually stop. But the mentality that you have and hopefully pass on to them so that they ensure everything that needs to be insured that's truly valuable. They insure their own temple and the temple of their children so that when something happens, which we hope it doesn't happen, but it's going to happen at some point, we want to be in the best position so we can absorb that and keep on living and doing what we have to do than to have the death of a loved one take down your whole household because you were not financially actually ready for it. And now here come the creditors, So it starts actually with the conversation. Brother Stan actually said it best, just get started. So you just got to start talking about it.
Yeah, let's have a conversation. And Brother Morris, I tell you, it's because I got my son is in his 20s, and so I mean, yeah, he's in his 20s, but when you think about your children, you think about them as little people. Yeah, they all grown and might got jobs and engineers and whatever, but that's your child, that's your baby. And even if the parent wants to, go ahead and start paying for it now until the child gets to a certain age and let them take it over, it's okay. At least something's been established and put in place. Because I know I run across people with the mentality that, my child is 18, he's out of high school, he's on his own. It's 2022. No, absolutely not. I'm an advocate. I mean, I love children. If I could have my wife could have more, we would. We just had fun with raising our children because we had great guidance. But it's your child, and you want, because that's your next generation.
Right.
It's your next generation, and you want to do right by them, whether they get to experience this entire life. If the Most High God calls them in early, you want to give them a nice send off.
Yes.
You want to give them a nice send off. You know, you want to end it the way you want to end it, being proud and being happy, and you understand that you had no control over it, but you don't want to be, because that's a guilt feeling you don't want to carry with you. That's a load, that's a weight you do not, as a parent, you can say that you might forget, but you won't. You will take that to your grave. Yes. And you don't want to take that to your grave. So yes.
Absolutely. And I think, and I watched my relationship evolve with my son. So I always see him, even though he's 6'4", 6'5" now, taller than I ever dreamed of being. But I still, like you said, I see him. I remember him the day he was born.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him the day he took his first steps. I still see that little child, even when I'm looking at this big grown man. So, but the nature of your relationship with your children evolves. You still have responsibility for them. And I don't care if he turns 50 and I'm 100, he's still my child, but I still have responsibility for him. But it's just the nature of the relationship is different. Exactly. So when they're adults, I'm more of an advisor to him and try to guide him into making the right decisions. And then even if he makes the wrong decision, I'm there to counsel him and to help him learn from that mistake. I'm not there to say, hey, well, I told you so, because that's definitely not something they want to hear, because I want him to come back and continue to have those discussions with me. Right. But I also am there to make decisions for him, even when he know I'm not making those decisions. That's like making sure that he's covered, because I have the wisdom through life experience that he hasn't gained yet. So therefore, that's my charge as a father to say, okay, hey, look, I'm looking out for him even when he doesn't even know I'm looking out for him. So, and hopefully this happens pretty soon, because we're like, man, you need to get married, have some kids. But so let's just say he gets married and one day has some kids. Even if he doesn't have the proper insurances after dad told him, hey, here's what you need to do, I'm going to make sure that I have coverages in place, because the one thing I would not want his wife or his children to have to worry about is, how am I going to put my husband away? We don't have the money to put dad away. That's okay. Father-in-law got you covered, because that's still my son at the end of the day. Right. And as long as I got any say-so, any control over the situation, I want to make sure that my son's taken care of. Now, have I been perfect as far as my planning? No, that's why I'm going to be talking to you guys. I'm like, hey, man, I'm lacking in this area. And matter of fact, we need to set that up, So, hey, man, I need to take care of this area. Hey, I could be doing better here. Hey, what do you advise on this? I think I'm doing good here, but there's some gaps here. I think I need to shore up. So, and I think if we're all honest with ourselves, I think we could all identify some things that we could probably be doing better. But for the most part, hey, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be doing whatever I can, to make sure that my wife's taken care of, my kids are taken care of. And if I got to look out at the rest of my family and say, okay, hey, I've got some family members that don't necessarily have the wherewithal, what can I do, from my perspective, what can I do to actually extend some of that coverage out to my other family members? I just think as stewards of our family, and I don't know about anybody else, but I am one of the only males left on my side of, like I said, the immediate family. As a matter of fact, I'm the only Jackson left. So, and I'm the oldest. The other two now are, one's a teenager and one, like I said, is 26. He's actually, so it'd be myself and my son would be the only two Jacksons left. So outside of that would be two other So his cousins, so one's 15 and the other one is, I think, roughly his same age, 26. So it's not very many men left in our family. So my sister and I were discussing this the other day. She said, well, brother, you're pretty much the patriarch, in the
Yes,
family.
sir.
So she says, not to put any burden on you. I said, no, she's not putting any burden on me. But yeah, realizing that there are some priorities in my life that, are going to have to change. There are some things that I need to put in place because I need to make sure that, I leave behind a positive legacy that can be, carried forward, not just for my son, but for everyone else in his family. So we need to put some things in place. So I've got some things I need to sit down and talk to you guys about, and we're going to figure out how to get it done. So just know that when I'm talking to you all, I'm not just putting things out there. I actually am going to live what I preach. So again, I would say to you, sit down, have that board meeting with your family. Call the family meeting together. If we got to cook up some good food and have a good dinner, bring everyone over, get them over. You know what you got to do to get your family over. Sit down and have this conversation because you're going to come together at some point.
Right.
So you got to choose whether it's going to be at a funeral.
Absolutely.
Or if it's going to be, preemptive, where you make the decision that, hey, we're gonna have a sit down meeting and we're gonna plan this thing out. We're gonna make sure that our finances are squared away. We're gonna make sure that our coverage is squared away. We're gonna make sure that we've got things in order. Because the last thing that I want to be to my family is a burden when I pass. And I'll tell this story, and I'll be quick about it. So last year, I had COVID, and I knew I was going to die. It was that bad, and I called my wife to the door because we were quarantined, and I called her to the door. I was upstairs, and I told her to start writing some things down. And it scared her. She says, "Well, I said, just don't argue with me. I can't, I don't know how much breath I got left. So I need to be able to tell you these things. Just write it down. Just do what I tell you, and so she knew when I got to that point, okay, it's serious, because I normally don't talk to my wife like that. So it was urgent. I had a sense of urgency in my voice. And so she wrote everything down that I told her. And I said, okay, call the ambulance. And I tell you, brother, when I left in that ambulance and I'm looking at my wife, and I'm looking at my neighbors and they're praying for me, I knew at that moment, I'm not coming back. Just in that moment, this is the last time I'm going to see my wife. This is the last time I'm going to see my house. This is the last time I'm going to see my neighbors. This is it. And let me tell you, in that moment, when you are at death's door, you don't have any concern for yourself. All your concern is about your family. All of the wealth, everything that you've accumulated, the cars, the house, none of that matters to you at the moment because it's just not important. It's just not even a thought. I can't even explain it to you. It's not even a thought. But you want to make sure that your family's taken care of. That was all I could think about because I knew in that moment, all that stuff was for them. All of that's for them. It's not for me. All of that's for them because where I'm going, I'm not going to need that. It was just not even a concern. Never even thought about it. But all my concern was for them. And I wanted to make sure my wife knew where everything was. I wanted to make sure we got all that taken care of. And that if that was going to be my last breath, I just wanted to make sure that she was okay and that the kids were okay. You don't want to be a burden on your family when you pass. That right there gave me peace. I was making peace at that time and I was ready to let go. If this was my time, I was ready to let go. Because I knew that, okay, hey, I've given the final instruction. I've told my wife, hey, here's what needs to happen. Here's where you need to go for this. And it was there. Now, There's a better way of doing that. Now, what if I hadn't had the opportunity to call her up? What if it would have been sudden, like my nephew? If we'd already had all of this written out, and where all she had to do was pick up the phone and make a phone call, all of that would already been taken care of. All of the financial information, bank accounts, 401k, all that would have been taken care of. So yeah, doing the right thing as far as having those things, but having a plan where all that information is consolidated. And we've had those meetings prior to that, and the wife already knows, hey, in case of my sudden departure, or as Pastor said, I'll fold up my tent and move upstairs. She knows where everything is. So thank God I had opportunity to tell her. But fast forward, hey, I made it. And one thing I promised the Lord, because I had some conversations with God. And it was more like he was having some conversations with me, because I couldn't answer any questions that God was answering me. I had no answer. And I'll videotape you in this and tell you, it's kind of my testimony about this. But when I came out of that hospital, the one thing I knew I was going to do is I was going to have this podcast. So the fact that you are listening to this podcast is not by coincidence. The fact that you all are on this podcast today as guests is no coincidence. So I'm going to do everything I can with the breath that God restored to my body to make sure that this information is put out. Now, what you do with it, it's on you at that point. Now, I hope and pray that we don't just listen to this podcast, but that we actually take this information and we put it into practice. Even if you don't fully understand everything, or you're still kind of cloudy about something, pick up the phone, email, text, get a hold to one of us. If you call me, if you call these gentlemen, I'll put you in contact with them. If they can't help you, I guarantee they'll put you in contact with someone who can. But we're talking about literally changing the paradigm. We have got to get past the fish fries, the GoFundMes, the self-inflicted trauma. We have to get past this. These are tools that are available to all of us. Now, I'm going to get down off my soapbox, and like I said, this is just very close right now because of the passing of my nephew, and I just don't want to let I didn't want to let this podcast be in vain today. I wanted to, if I was going to come on today, I was going to do everything I could to make sure that people understood the sense of urgency around life and putting things in place to mitigate those things that will happen to us in life. Because trust me, if I had to choose differently, I would choose that this young man would still be alive today. I would choose that my sister wouldn't have to be going through the trauma that she's going through. Now, I'm the oldest brother, and I've always protected my sister. But let me tell you, as much as I love my sister and we do everything, there's nothing that I could do to protect her from this.
Sure.
That was my nephew. There's nothing physically that I could do to protect him from passing away.
Sure.
There's nothing physically that I could do. And I know you love your children. I know you love your brother, your sister. But let me tell you, there's nothing physically that you can do to protect them from certain circumstances. But what we can do is plan. What we can do is make sure that we have the proper coverages in place, estate planning. So if I reach only one person today, then I feel like the mission was accomplished. And I'll go back and I'll say it again. The first person that contacts you all and gets their young person covered, I will pay their first year premium out of my pocket. And I'm going to be obedient to the Lord because I feel like the Lord told me to do that, and I'm going to do it. So, gentlemen, that's all I have today, and I want to thank you for coming on to Religion, Economics, and Politics. Like I said again, I didn't know if I was going to come on, but I just really felt in my spirit that I needed to come on and honor my nephew today. Reach out to some parents, uncles, aunts, guardians. I mean, whoever it is was supposed to hear this podcast. Please take the first step. Like you said, Brother Stan, just get started. Get started. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Even if it's just, even if you say, hey, I don't even know what I'm talking about, get a hold of these gentlemen, get a hold of someone in this industry and call a meeting. Hey, explain this to us. How can we get started? Here's what we have. Is the coverage good enough? We don't have anything. How, what should we do? What should we get? How much coverage should we have? And we talked about that tonight. Now, these gentlemen gave you their telephone number. I'm gonna have you give the telephone number and email address, whatever contact information you want to give. We'll make sure it's posted again. I would strongly advise you, give them a phone call. Start there. How about that? Start with the phone call. Arm yourself with information and then go from there. You don't have to be a financial whiz. We don't have to be, rich. Let's throw that out. Let's just get that out of your head. Start with the phone call. Go ahead, gentlemen, give your information.
Brother Stan, his phone number is 478-707-7603. And my phone number is 510-602-2041. Our email address is info@htoew.com. Our website is htoew.com, and that stands for Hidden Tools of Economic War. I appreciate your heavy heart, brother, because it's painful. It's painful, and like you said, it's also a helpless state where you can't do anything but try to process and heal and grieve. The one thing that I think that we should consider, because like I said, it is a conversation, but we have to realize that we are all family. It's only one family, and we've been made to believe other than that because that's what the power structure does. But we are all one family, and so we are all cousins, and we have to realize that at the end of the day, I don't want my cousins hurting from anything that's actually preventable. So we have to get the information out there, have that conversation, have that dialogue, so our cousins are all protected and aware, and we can start the dialogue, because regardless of your religion, your education, the one thing that is common, like you said, we're going to come together as a family, but are we coming together proactively or reactively?
Yes.
And if we do it proactively, we can have a conversation, we can have actually dialogue, and based upon the resources in that family, we can start something in our household that can begin a feeder system for our little cousins to understand and to kind of pull them into that mentality, with you having an infrastructure based upon our next conversation of the family bank, so that we are drawing a conversation in and we can understand the different ways to do it. And we can just turn the key from thinking about Bank of America to thinking about, the Bank of Jackson, and
I like the sound of that.
We understand how that works, and we understand that it's so important for the conversation to happen for the 19-year-olds, for the 26-year-olds, but also for the 16 and the 7-year-olds, because it's a mentality to the point where if we have these conversations often enough, when we speak about death to our spouses, it's not a shock, because they already know when you say, I think this is it, baby, they automatically trigger where everything is, what everything needs to do. It's kind of like you practicing to play actually basketball. The coach calls a play, everybody jumps into position to run that play. So that's what we have to do with our cousins, but it starts with this conversation and with the family meeting piece so that we can begin to take control, because death is going to happen. And in the world that we live in, I would even go so far to say, as we are targeted to be the victims in many different ways, but we have to prepare ourselves for it, because as we start having these conversations, then as victims, we can understand we don't have to be victims. We can pull ourselves out of that and see what's actually coming and prepare our families so that when somebody actually passes, it's not prematurely, and it can truly be a celebration of life, because we all prepared ourselves through the conversation, through the healing process, actually through the planning process.
Yep, I agree 100%, brother.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'd like to just, again, thank you for having the strength to do this.
Yes, sir.
Because I can tell that you are very close to your family. You being the family patriarch, the last man standing at this point. You got young people coming up, and you got to deal with the younger people leaving a little early before, we want to leave first. Yeah. But when we see our family members leave before we do, that does something to you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it does. And so we just see this as and you probably can quote the Bible section scripture, but even though the Most High said, "My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge," that's kind of a call to action. You don't have to be. You don't have to be. And that's why I think that we feel that void, because when you say that, when the Most High say that means, hey, it's time for you guys to get to work. Save your family members, get the information to them, whatever little aspect of this world life that you want to go into it, but you need to do something to save them, because we don't have to be, suffering the way we suffer, especially when we just walk away from knowledge, So, but again, I would thank you, and I definitely like to send my condolences to your family, your sister, and definitely pray for her to get through this, because I can't imagine. I have some idea, but I can't. 19 years old. That's real early. Life ain't started. He ain't got out the grave. He ain't out the cradle yet. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank both you brothers for coming on today. And like I said, I believe our steps are ordered by the Lord. And there's no coincidence that that you're on this podcast, and only the Lord knows what's going to happen, and it all comes in His timing. So, it's just up to us to be prepared at all times. So, like I said, I just, want to my sister to know that I'm going to do everything that I can to honor my nephew's life, and to my nephew, I'm going to miss you dearly, and words just can't explain just what a void will be left. And I know even now so many neighbors are stopping by because my nephew was such a helpful young man, and neighbors just can't believe it, because he just would stop and help people just do different odd jobs and elderly around the community and in the neighborhood. Um, and so just to know the contributions that he put into the community where he lived, it really makes me proud. I mean, it really makes me proud. Um, you know, just a young man who loved to make sure that everyone was looked after, and and he always had a smile on his face, and he was always happy. And he never liked to see anyone down or upset about anything, and he was going to do whatever he could to put a smile on your face. So, nephew, I just want to let you know that you put a smile on my face, and I'm going to keep smiling and honor you, and I'm going to do everything I can, to live up to the legacy that you created in such a short, amount of time here on this earth. And to everyone watching this podcast, just know that our family, we're grieving, but we're not defeated. So we know that this is just a beginning, and through every tragedy, somehow, God always finds a way, for us to achieve a victory through that. So, my nephew, I think he, if he was here, he'd want to, let everybody know, hey, don't be sad for me, don't be sad for me. And, we're just gonna continue to march on and do everything we can to honor his life. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this podcast. And like I said, if we reach just one person tonight, then we've done our job. We've done our job today. So thank you for tuning in again to Religion, Economics, and Politics. Stay encouraged. Be blessed.